I had a very funny experience in London, talking with a TV commentator. He was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and we were both on TV. He was interviewing me from another city, and when I would like to look at him in the eye, so I would look at him in the TV. Of course, I'm not looking at him, because you'd have to look at the camera in order to be looking at his eyes. I like to talk to people's eyes, because our eyes really communicate much more in the way of response. And we really both had a terrific time trying to get on that, how we could really talk to each other. You couldn't do it. It's rather self. I think you have a very interesting experience. So I'm looking now. I can't look at my own eyes here.
Each person should have his own TV monitor.
So if I want to be able to have my eyes looking at me, I've got to look at the camera, so I can't see. I can't look at the machine at the same time.
Yeah. Right.
It's really kind of strange.
I heard.
I'd like to. Do you want? You're already shooting?
Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to really talk about something, the things that are very vigorously on our mind due to all the things that are going on. We've just gone through Earth Day, and we've had millions and millions of people really expressing themselves best they know how about the problems that are clearly confronting us. So certainly the word pollution became one of the most vigorously used words in ecology. The two words show up. And Earth, 3 words. Number one, I have been for a very long time very fundamentally, deeply interested in what this is all about. In fact, the kind of picture you just showed me of Earth Day and that little child, at whatever she was, maybe she might have been 7 or 8, I would think. And she was, her intense interest in our world was manifest. And every little child, as born, is interested in everything. It's only the older people who say, darling, you can't be playing the whole universe, you've got to come in and have A, B, and C, and then we instead of having nice universal eyes, going to get down to very small focus. Now, I found that, for instance, the word pollution, which is seemingly has great meaning to everybody, the word is, however, is invented by man to describe something he's experiencing, and pollution is always dealing with something that you consider waste or not wanted. And as we study universe, we find universe does consist, physical universe consists of only 92 regenerative chemical elements. And they have fantastic regularities of behaviors. Only very few years ago, the man did discover what they call the periodic table, and then began to find the great regularities in the nature. Man himself used to think of nature as very chaotic, but as we explored it more deeply and very carefully, we found these beautiful regularities. Now, those 92 regenerative chemical elements, the relative abundance of them in universes as the astronomer goes exploring the heavens and has a telescope focused at one star and then another, he is making the light that comes through a prism, goes through spectroscopic bending. As we know, when you put a prism in front of the light, you get your red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Well, there are a great many other frequencies or colors that man can't see or tune in. As you know, you have a special little crystal that will give you special tuning for a special kind of airplane bands, but nature has these absolutely discrete frequency of behavior of each one of the chemical elements. So the astronomer's been able to find out exactly how much chemical elements in each star, that we actually have an inventory, a fantastic inventory of our universe of how much of these chemical elements are. Those chemical elements themselves have these fantastic behaviors where some automatically associate with others. For instance, 2 balls can come and make contact with each other, and there is mass attraction, so they want to come up like that. Then I could get a 3rd ball could come and nest in the valley between these 2, so you get it makes a triangle. I can get another, that makes a nest in the middle of the 3, and you put another one, a 4th. Those all nest very nicely. Try and put a 5th one on there. It is no longer in symmetry. You had certain kind of symmetries up to now. Nature allows certain of these associabilities and non-associabilities. You can explore for what they are. But all of them, there's a relative abundance of each of them. Hydrogen, which is the most needed in all of the behaviors of nature. You and I are very 90% water, and that's H2O, which would hold 1/3 of its hydrogen. And so these chemical elements are in various relative abundance in the universe, and physics finds that they're neither created nor lost. So the universe is a continual interchange of these, and evolution continually going on, stars giving off fantastic amounts of these energies, and they're being accumulated other places. The Earth is apparently one of the places where the energies are being accumulated, because you can't have high pressure unless you had low pressures, as in our atmosphere. So the low pressures are exhausting the high pressures. Our Earth seems to be one of the places in the universe where energy, instead of being given off this great random way of the stars, energy is being collected very methodically and beautifully, so that the atmosphere bends the radiation very in these lovely unique frequencies. Then the water, which covers 3/4 of the Earth, bends it even more. You stick a pole in the water and see how it bends. By all these bendings, the sun radiation, which is impinging first on and perpendicularly on Earth as a sphere, is suddenly being bent till it finally is now going circumferentially. So it goes around as heat in the waters in the ocean currents. That brings about such extraordinary stability of the heating of the Earth that, despite the colds and heats that you and I experience, the annual averaging of it all doesn't change 1%, 1 degree Fahrenheit, year to year after year. It stays in this view. So there is within that very specific temperature limit, you and I would freeze if we went outside of those limits, and that life could be preserved in there. And you and I, all of us, no matter what our size, what our age, no matter what clothes we're wearing, no matter what geography, we're all giving off 98 6/10 degrees Fahrenheit temperature all the time by product heat. So this is a fantastic, beautiful energy, heat, and pressures balance, which is absolutely essential to regeneration of life, and in fact, apparently regeneration of the universe itself. So we have some very unique function in the regeneration of the universe, and that's what I began to look for. Now, in those kind of terms, and you'll see then the tree taking, you and I can't get energy through our skin enough. We can get tan, but you can't live on it. We would dehydrate if we were exposed to the sun enough to really get, in fact, we'd be killed lethally. But the vegetation is designed to do that. So the tree is able to have its leaves exposed to the sun, and the tree has to be rooted in order to get enough water to keep it water cool, so it won't be dehydrated when it really exposes itself that way. So it exposes all its cells. It then converts the sun radiation by photosynthesis. Photosynthesis makes beautiful molecules, and each of these molecules are beautiful structures, so to speak, about associating other chemical elements in preferred ways that make cells. And then that energy, which has been taken on by the vegetation, can be taken on by the beetle, and can be taken on by the worm, and can be taken on by many of the creatures. In fact, the cow can go out and graze on the grass, but you and I can't eat the grass. Then this gets converted finally into a very highly concentrated energy, and you and I can actually, most men have not, meat was so wanted by the powerful men of yesterday who had the sword, said all the animals belonged to them, and the other people had to eat roots, to the non-strong people. And this, they got, so the other people got undernourished, and the strong men simply used it. So you're not really used to the idea, because it's not been available to you and I yesterday, but meat is by far the most easiest to assimilate. Somebody say, you better have bread or milk. They're very difficult to assimilate, and the meat's absolutely simple. You and I could swallow meat whole. Our intestinal tract is more similar to that of lion, but really able, if you don't choke on it, it will be absolutely assimilated. Now, we're getting a great big cycle of how life gets regenerated. This way it's designed to get down to be natural. But then we see the animal giving off excrement, and we see the leaf falls out of the tree, many of these great deciduous trees. This makes, gradually on top of a rock, we got some topsoil. And we have to have all the chemistries are needed. In other words, what I'm getting at now is that you see the sun then evaporates the water, and the water falls, comes down as rain. Now, in ignorant terms, that would be pollution. The skies are polluting. In ignorant terms, the leaves falling from the tree would be pollution. But the point is, there is this extraordinary chemical balance. So when man does extract one of these chemistries, and said, this is what I want, and tries to exploit it because you need it, and so I'm going to make you pay high for it. And man tried to find out how he would get on when he didn't. When he didn't have the saw, maybe he'd get on better by selling something. And all kinds of little tricks of pure humanity, poor little humanity has gotten onto. And so we got. So, but he knows you want that, but he doesn't want this, and he's very ignorant about it. So he calls that pollution. What it is, it's very valuable chemistry that's needed there. I have a number of young students like yourselves who come working with me, and we went to work really getting some figures. We found the amount of, the thing possibly most worst pollution we have in the sky is from the sulfur. The yellowish part of it is the sulfur, brownish yellow. The amount of sulfur coming out of all the smokestacks around the whole Earth annually exactly matches the amount of sulfur man is having to take out of the ground to make the industrial, all the things you and I need. And it actually costs less if we were to take it while it's coming out of the stack. It's highly concentrated there. Once it's gone out of the stack, it's diffused and you can't get it out of the atmosphere because the energy expenditure, time expenditure, you and I would be so great we couldn't afford to do it. And so instead that gets into our lungs and making all that trouble. So catch things around the stack like that, highly concentrated, like getting refining ore. And so now that just simply move that where it belongs. This is true for all of our waste paper. We now find you can turn it into high protein food. Every bit of it. We don't have to have any of it. So what we will catch on with is we've been so fundamentally set individual ignorant and so specialized. Everything is going out like that, like the twigs growing and branches more and more, but nobody integrating. So we need recirculation, the circumferential recirculation. That's where nature really does her thing. In order to make the universe is sort of the minimum pattern of total recirculations in order to have a complete integrity where you don't have to add anything into the universe at all. So we have that function, and the function you and I are given is the ability of our mind to sort and differentiate out. And what we ought to be doing all the time is really being sure to take that paper and put it there, and the glass there, and the metal there, and crush it. We find one reason the great scrap heaps out here is because the people who used to own mines didn't want any competition from scrap. In fact, when they first took things out of mine, they thought really, the metal used to rust and they said it would never come back. Suddenly, after an enormous amount of productions at the beginning of this century, about the time of World War I, they suddenly found the metals that were coming back from scrap were unexpected. So that the people who were trying to monopolize and make a whole lot by separating out this chemistry as copper or whatever it was, were very greatly bothered by it. In fact, aluminum was highly monopolized, and suddenly they found aluminum could be melted up, so that such companies like Bond Aluminum, so they all started by using scrap. So now we find the people who have these enormous automobile heaps and so forth, they keep it there because they're simply waiting for it when you get a higher market price, not because it could really be put right back into the furnace. All of our steel today, in fact, you can't make steel without the scrap. The better steel is made out of scrap. So 65% of the steel is from the scrap, of the recirculating, and it can go higher and higher. Copper is 84% is from the scrap. Man doesn't lose any of it at all. Copper is so expensive that man uses it carefully, but it's so functional as the best conductor of electricity and so forth that he's had to use it. Therefore, is the one you can really watch to see how that, and all that copper gets completely recirculated. Every time it gets recirculated, for instance, we make the first telephone wires carried, for a given cross-section wire, carried one message between you and I. Then they learned that you could get two messages on because there's an interval of vibration, so it got the waves to integrate. Then they got it up to 28 messages per same cross-section. They got it up to 200, then they got up to 2,000. Every time we melted up the copper, it's an amazing thing, we get more performance out of the same copper. And this way we take care of more people. So here we find what man's real function is sorting out his experience, developing what we call the know-how, and being useful. So I find the only thing that is, we hear people talk about technology is something very threatening coming from that. We are technology. The universe is technology. It's simply a matter of our understanding these things, that nature has these beautiful exchanges. And what's happened was this short-sighted really scare, the fear of man, whether he's going to survive. He's been told there's nowhere nearly enough to go around, therefore you've got to go out and look out for your side, look out for your family. So he's got hold of this thing and made the short move. So what a young girl, like that girl talking so superbly on Earth Day, 8-year-old kid, with pure wisdom pouring out of her, her eyes could see as clear. She said, we ought not to throw away, we ought to reuse and things like that. That little child was seeing that. So I say that the net from all of our extraordinary Earth Day is that we have all of humanity catching on to things that need to be attended to that they were assuming yesterday somebody else was attending to. In fact, they were in such poverty. They had so little time, they had to work 12 hours or 14 hours a day. My first jobs, I really was working 18 hours a day. And you didn't have anything left. You go home, I really didn't have enough to zip at me to eat my supper before I fell down in the bed and go to sleep. So I find humanity didn't even have time to think, and nor did it have the vocabulary. It didn't have the literacy. The literacy did not come as much out of school as radio. There was a radio because the people who had the jobs that radio had good diction and good vocabulary necessary for it. So the kid began to listen to good vocabulary that his papa didn't have. And so we really proliferated the capability to communicate. So now that we know how to communicate, we know there's so many nuances of information, that little child was what was really most impressive beyond her wisdom was the beautiful resource of words that she had, which came so spontaneously to her. And when I was a little kid, as that kid would only say, I don't like it, or say, wow, something just make a noise, but not have any resources to express it. Really, and she'd have the same wisdom and no way to express it. So I think that the great, beautiful things happening in evolution here is, quite clearly, we've gone through a great historical sequence of events I'll tell you. We go through man finding so ignorant, and his hunger is so great, his needs are great, and he doesn't know how to satisfy it. So he goes through starvation, and he goes through pain and disease. Go back to the earliest Pharaoh time. Life was so bad that nobody thought of life as worthwhile in its own right. Obviously couldn't be. Therefore, the only way you could explain you were having such experience is getting you ready for afterlife. So everybody thought about afterlife, but in fact, it was part of your experience. There's so little to go around that you could only think of the Pharaoh having afterlife. So the great drive, economic drive, all the great ingenuity of the man that could see anything, an artist, conceiver, everything was patronized by the afterlife of the Pharaoh. Then, in getting ready for the afterlife of the Pharaoh, you incidentally discover the levers in order to, if you're going to take care of the afterlife of the Pharaoh, what are you going to do? You know that everybody's full of, there's thieves everywhere, and he's going to need these tools after his life, so you've got to get all these fine things under a great stone mountain, so it couldn't be stolen. And that's why your pyramid is that. So you're going to have to move a lot of stones. So the Leonardo type good thinker realizes the lever. So he gets an army of prisoners, and they use their levers to move those stones around, build that mountain. However, after the Pharaoh dies, the Leonardo type dies, people still remember about the lever. They still remember that the Leonardo type saw these people falling in their work. They needed food, quite clearly connected to food. So, well, there's the Nile River, and we can make ditches in from the Nile that will make fertilize more, make water into those side lands, and we'll have fertilization. Sure enough, the irrigation ditches. But I say, when the Pharaoh dies and that thinker dies, the ditches are still there and the levers are still there, and people remember it. So there's an accumulation of some technical capability. So then another man comes along getting ready, another Pharaoh, and he adds to the inventory of tools, of what you might call the scaffolding, and make ready for afterlife. Finally, there's such accumulation of tools and capability and a little more know-how everywhere of craftsmen. Say, well, we might be able to take care of the afterlife of the nobles as well as the pharaohs. So then the tools increased some more as you did that, and they said, well, we can take care of the afterlife of the middle class. That is exactly where you come into the Roman and Greek history. You see, there are the mausoleums, individual family mausoleums. Finally, there got to be so much tooling around that we have a Buddha and a Christ and Muhammad coming around. So, you know, I think we can take care of the afterlife for everybody. And so really the great, we might call it Christian area of 1500 is getting ready for the afterlife for everybody. The great cathedrals fantastic thing. And you still see the really pathos of that little human being going in there. Never mind for desert life, but they have the great joy that they're going to have afterlife. Now, then suddenly there was so much tools accumulated here, and the know-how keeps accumulating. Man knows a little more about nature and what he can do, and so he said, you know, we could take care of the afterlife of everybody, but we also could take care of the afterlife of the king. And now we take care of his living life, and still take care of everybody's afterlife. So this is beginning what he called the divine right of kings. Then the tools began to accumulate some more, so that, well, no, we can take care of the nobles also, in their present life as well as afterlife for everybody. And that is Magna Carta Day. Then we have so much more proliferation of tools. So, we take care of the afterlife for everybody, and the king, and the nobles, and the middle class. So that's the great Victorian era, right up to all the brownstones of New York. And then suddenly, the tools accumulate so much. Henry Ford said, we could take care of the afterlife of everybody, take care of the living life of everybody. And that's the beginning of this new era. But but then as this point, the Leonardo artist type said, up to now, we were using our own hands to make end products for the patron. So the Victorian era, you'll find the beautiful cabinet maker, and you find the beautiful shoemaker and tailor. Fantastic craftsmen everywhere. But now he said, I can't, if I'm going to, it has to be everybody. There are not enough artists to make end products for everybody. Therefore, we have to have an entirely new kind of thing, which is our industrial tools, our mass production, and that's what has really come to all of humanity. So what we've got to really come to now is developing awareness of that little child. We've got to proliferate the right information. The industrialization of technology is not something new. You and I, our technology is so superior to any we've ever devised. There seems to be a difference between us, because that camera looks pretty crude alongside of my eye. And my eye has always had it's got its own light meter, it's got the whole works. You ever watch that little fantastic thing? And so I simply say, it's our own machinery. If you had that camera, so it could also rebuild itself and keep itself going and improving itself for the next 70 years, then you have something approximating the kind of technology you and I really consist of. So technology is not new, we've just been a little too crude at it. And what our society has got to be sure not to let somebody mislead us, not let our own ignorance mislead us into making the wrong moves. We're going to have to be able to be sure to understand. And the biggest great problem of all of humanity today is because when we talk about humanity, we're talking now about 3.5 billion people, and not when we were talking about middle class, we're talking about less than 1% of humanity. So it's not we're talking that's 3 million and a half. We're talking about 3 billion there. So the education is on, and the great stirrings of man, a young world peeling off from the old world, realizing the older world has reflexes get conditioned so sharply, it's very difficult for them to be cured. And the young world then intuitively realizing the older world was thinking too locally, too short-sightedly, and now the young world acting, first being just negative, peeling off, but now asking questions about the things that are really obvious, like pollution. The young people are then begin, in your picture of Earth Day, that they go out with a broom and start collecting. If they went further and picking out the paper from it and the metal and said, we're going to get those recirculated, we're going to find how you get recirculated, then we're really getting somewhere. Each one of us is process, we're not things, and so fantastic. There's no scientist has ever been asked to look at the plumbing. And I'll tell you, the best flushing toilet you have is so inefficient that we use 65 volumes of water to get rid of 1 volume of human waste. But it isn't waste. That is very, very valuable chemistry. And at the University of Illinois, way back in 1929, we found that the human excrement of one farm family had in it enough energy to run all the farm machinery. So these are the things that I hope our young world, having first is getting aware and then getting to be critical and pick out things, and now going to really begin to understand the need of a greater understanding of nature. I was just talking to Harold Taylor on the telephone. He called me when you and Harold had just written an article about me in Saturday Review, and he wrote the most generous, beautiful article about me. But he ended up with, he said, the only problem is Bucky may not know Murphy's Law, and Murphy's Law is that whatever can fail will fail. And I said, Harold.
Named after the cow.
I said, Harold, it's very important for me to tell you that the word failure was invented by man, just like the word pollution. And it's a word of ignorance, because nature can't fail. Nature knows exactly what she's doing. But when man doesn't understand nature and thinks that this is the way nature behaves, and he tries to make it do this, and that's not in her program, then it frustrates him, and he calls it a failure. There was no failure. Nature cannot fail. That's another one of those invented man words of ignorance. And I said, once you really know that, Hal, that nature doesn't intend to have anything go on for very long. She's always transforming. So she has a way of terminating. And when man tries to make it go on beyond that termination point, then it's called failure, but it's not so. So again, and Harold was very excited to realize that the Murphy Law was a statement of ignorance and not something that really frustrates us at all. If we understand what nature does, she doesn't ever fail. We really employ her properly. Never. So I would simply say nature is intent on trying to make man a success despite himself, and despite this long, long history of this great ignorance, where I'm trying to give you the way the breakthrough is occurring, and we have gone, because we're still assuming fallaciously, there's not enough to go around. Everybody thinks you have to prove your right to live. You have to earn a living, as they say, was the old statement. The young world really feels now that's wrong. That the information that we can get the moon and do all those things has been very important, Mr. Daniel, because it tells man he can do anything he needs to do, and he can make man work. And he's got to learn that the space program is not something that he says, never mind that space stuff, let's get down to Earth, let's be practical. And we hear that voice, either on the part of really the very avaricious and short-sighted, or you can hear the part of the kids who are full of, say, maybe we better look out, never mind that space stuff, so let's be blasé about the moon shoot. But the fact is, our Earth is a little spaceship. Unless we catch on to the fact we are a space program ourselves, and that we have just so much supply, we've got to learn how to run that. And the best way to learn to run a big spaceship, which we're on board, is to send little spaceships off and find out exactly what you need to be able to keep human beings going. This is the only way we will really ever find out about ecology, because I was asked at 30 different universities for Earth Day, and I did go to 4. And I asked each one of the audience of the kids if they could tell me how much of the Earth was necessary to support each life. And when you talk ecology, that is the pattern of the science of the total processing life, what's necessary to regenerate. It's a relationship, each species is a relationship to the environment. And none of them knew. So I said, you're not really not qualified to use the word ecology to begin to get into that. But I'll tell you, the way we find out is to send the man off in space, get him outside where there's no air to be breathed, no water available, no foods. What do we have to have on board to keep him out there for a year? We've literally found now that it is possible, because there are 2 space program researchers where we had teams of 6 men each, sealed up in cylinders, completely different operations, quite remote from one another. The Russians are doing all the same thing too. Mm-hmm. Those men have been sealed for a year, and you gave them the preliminary equipment, which you did learn by having scientists who are good ecologists and good chemists put everything in there necessary. They hope to be able to keep the men going. They're connected by telephone. It's very easy to talk in now. You have a window, but they're now operating 6 men for 1 year on 350 pounds of apparatus, and the whole apparatus being able to put in one airplane suitcase. That we could get everything you need to regenerate life. There is entropy, so the system in the end has to have something added, but you're able to handle it sufficiently. You only have to add in once a year. Now this is really getting somewhere. When we get down to, so we come back on Earth, we've got 350 pounds, suitcase size. We can reproduce that, even the most expensive of mass production, for $2 a pound. $2 a pound, that's $700, and you do away with the sewers, all the water supply lines. All you need is a milk bottle or so a year to add into the system. on a rental basis for 6 men, you're down for $700. You're down $200 a year capital cost, which maybe $1 a year. You got the equipment, and you go on any mountaintop and really start living the highest standard. And this equipment, when it gets first used with those men off in space, you'll have, due to the television relay around the world, you'll have possibly 1 billion people watching those 6 men all year round, and have every kid really catching on to this. Here will be the great educational system on what the chemistry exchanges really are. Anyway, I simply say we must be very careful and not cut off things simply because the wrong people are with short and selfish and non-thinking motives have used tools. A pencil is a beautiful thing, but you literally could jab it into a man's heart and kill him. So don't say that the pencil is lethal. The lead on the pencil could kill you. Simply as poison, lead poisoning. In other words, the wrong people using the wrong tools in ignorant ways, short-sighted ways, must not be blamed the universe. So it's like saying the universe gets used in the wrong way, therefore we better not have a universe. If we accept the universe at all, if we accept life, we really like to have something best for it, then we've simply got to learn how to use our universe the best way, and the universe is technology, so it simply means, and it's always evoluting, it's always complex, it's not repeating, so we have to be catching on to our new technology and realize that we really do have a machinery of mutual regeneration around the world, which has been, for the moment, so powerful and so confident, been very highly exploitable by the ignorant man who happened to monopolize it. But in itself, it's getting out from under him because he had sovereign claims. Well, look, you can't stop the radio waves from going out of the sovereign limits. You understand? I'll stop now. I think I've come to a very logical point of stopping, and no, the universe goes right on. But we need a cutoff point in what I'm saying, and I think this is a good cutoff point.